What's good, YouTube? It's your boy G Hollywood coming at you, but with a different show. Today is life after life, meaning the life I have after I was given the life sentence in 1990. As we all know, I served 25 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I was released to prepare into my new life. But today, I have in studio a special guest by the name of Dr. Perez. And what she wants to do is evaluate me on my mental state and also elaborate on my prison labor video. So without further ado, I'll let Dr. Perez do what she do.
Thank you for allowing me to be in your show, Hollywood. I also want to thank you for allowing me and my colleagues to come and ask, these questions. I'm going to start asking the first question is tell us a little bit about yourself and your life while you were being incarcerated, before being incarcerated.
So before I went to prison, as we all know, I grew up in a hostile neighborhood, West Dallas Projects, low housing income area. I did the normal things an individual would do in a low income housing area, which was go to school, come home, recreate with the people that was around him. And I did that up until the age of 13. My mother was brutally murdered in the streets after being shot 3 times by a close friend of hers. And soon I took to the street and started to commit crimes, which was namely robberies. And that led me to TDC. And it's kind of like the streets became my mother and father, and sooner or later TDC became my keeper.
When did you realize that the Texas Department of Corrections was a racist institution?
I realized that real quick. After a couple of years of being incarcerated, I seen that the whole surroundings of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice was segregated, from the inmates to the officers. And as far as the jobs, that also was segregated. And I said that to say this because you would see the Hispanics working in the fields, working the yard squad. The blacks would have SSI jobs or food service, and maintenance wasn't the majority white. And if you had seen a black in maintenance, he was sweeping the floor or cleaning toilets.
Was there any TDC officers that were more racist than others while you were there?
I have to say yes, but not to sound racist myself. You had, blacks, that were racist towards whites, just as whites were racist towards blacks. And you had very little Hispanics that worked there. So, but yes, it was very, very racist on both sides. It seemed like that the officers that were racist would click with racist officers, and the blacks that were racist would click with the black officers. It was a setup like the officers was just like the inmates. So that allowed the system as a whole to be segregated. Now, that's just my opinion, but this is what I would see on a daily basis.
I know in your video you talked about working on the fields. Can you describe how that was?
Well, working in the fields probably was one of my most disgusting time in prison. And the reason why is because when you would go to the field, you would have to go to the back gate, stripped butt naked, going in and out of that back gate. And then not only would you have to do that, picture this, it's like slavery days in the plantation. And you had the officer on the horse, which governed the whole field squad that you were in. And you would have to work sun up to sundown some days. You would only come in for lunch, then it was back out to work. And, you know, me being born and raised in the city, never picked cotton in my life. Never picked cotton in my life. And for me to have to put a 100-pound cotton bag on my back was traumatizing to any individual that never picked cotton. And I'm not saying towards just blacks, probably some whites, probably some Hispanics, but to be inside of any legal institution that promoted slavery was traumatizing to any individual. So that is what I remember about going to the field, other than if you would get tired, you couldn't go in the building. They would call what they called it, they would call it like the petty wagon. It would bring a truck out there, put you in the truck, and it all depends on if that officer, whomever he is, wanted to carry you in at that particular time. You would sit out there in the sun, handcuffed in the back of a truck until he decided to take you in. And then they had a steel cage, which they called a steel Seville, and it was black. And we all know anything that's black and high heat draw heat. They would put you inside that cage until it was time for you to go in, handcuffed. You would be inside that cage until it was time for you to go in the building. So that is my most memorable moments in the field, being treated like a slave.
How was your mental health during those situations? Like, how was your mental health?
Well, to be honest with you, like I said, I had a life sentence. Some days I wanted to live, some days I wanted to die. Because, you know, although I had committed a crime, nothing in life can prepare you for being held inside of a racist institution that treated you like you was a slave. Nothing in life can prepare you for that. So from a mental standpoint, I like to say that, you know, I was okay for the most part, but, you know, I'm speaking for me, but I've seen those that weren't okay. Going to the field, I've seen people cut their Achilles heel, cut half of their knee, only to escape the work that's inside, you know, that's outside in the field. I've seen people do horrendous things to themselves so they wouldn't have to turn out the back gate and go to work. You know, that is my, you know, my worst memories of being in the field.
If you can say anything to one of the racist officers, what would you say?
If I can say one thing to the racist officers that worked in TDC in the 90s, when I was there, this is what I would say to them. Because I have a say now that I'm free. But when I was there, I had to compromise who I was then, but not now. What I would say is this: the inmates that are held inside the Texas Department of Criminal Justice has already been tried and sentenced. Those back then that brought brutality and harm to the inmates that were held in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, we did not deserve to be beaten inside of a prison that we didn't commit the crime in. We were already tried and sentenced and sent to prison to do time. And once again, I do not say this for any viewer to feel sympathy for any man that's inside of prison. All we wanted back then was a first shot. And some days we got that, and some days we didn't.
Is there any last statements or thoughts that you want to share?
It's something that I really want to say for a long time. And I know, you know, like you here today to test my mental state. And once again, I like to say that I'm mental capable of doing anything to get to the next level. But the horror and the trauma that I suffered inside of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, like any other man or woman that has ever been incarcerated, that trauma lives with you for the rest of your life. So for anybody out there that's committing any crimes that might land them inside of any institution in any state, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Because when I went to prison, not only were you physically tested, you was mentally tested. I've seen many men hang from the run. Many men put a rope around their neck, all because their mental state was tested and they couldn't survive. Real doesn't work inside of prison when your mental stability is off. So for anybody that's watching this video, do your homework before you commit a crime in the streets. And with that being said, hit that like, subscribe, and most of all, share this video. And if you want to contribute to this channel, please look in the link and check the bio if you want to contribute to this channel. But most of all, hit that like, subscribe, and share this video.